Hi, I'm Violet Blue, and this video is part of our Smart Girls Guide to Privacy video series. But first, I want to give you some updates because I finally had my big production and scheduling meeting with No Starch Press last week about the book, and I've got some pretty exciting news. Now, if you're a No Starch author, then you probably know that the company had a pretty massive change recently, and that massive change had to do with its distributor. So basically, No Starch Press switched distributors since the time my book came out in 2015 and now, and their new distributor is Penguin Random House, which is huge. Penguin Random House is the largest publisher and distributor of paperback books in the world. I realized what a game changer it was when I was in my meeting with Penguin's rep last week. They are thrilled to get their hands on this book. They're really excited to be repping a book that is from No Starch Press that's accessible and for a mainstream audience, as in not technical. But they're also personally thrilled. Like when the rep is telling you she can't wait to give a copy to her daughter, and the guy on the creative team is excited to get a copy for his mom, you know that A, they smell money, which is going to be good, but also that you're in good hands and that you're working with people who are really going to push the book and believe in it. One interesting comment that came up from the rep when we were in our meeting was that they thought the book had come out too soon. And it was interesting for me to hear because when I wrote it 5 years ago, I felt that it should have come out at least 5 years before that, at least. But they had a point, and it's a really good one in that so much that is covered in the book has become mainstream news and press topics in the past 5 years. People are way more aware of the specifics of security and privacy than they were 5 years ago. So I guess it was really nice to kind of have that kind of echoed, from someone who is an outsider and works in the mainstream industry, in the publishing industry. It reminds me, too, of just how much a bubble that we privacy and security people live in out here on the edge of tech and innovation, and how much we have to kind of check that bubble before we try to talk to people about security and privacy practices. Again, it's identifying the gap between what we know and what other people know and figuring out how to fill in that gap. So I know a burning question from quite a few of you has been, when is it going to come out already? Well, we finally kind of figured it mostly out. The soonest I could get on the publication and distribution schedule was fall of 2020. Now, I know that feels like it's a long ways away, but production schedule-wise speaking, it's actually kind of crazy. It means that basically in the next 12 weeks, I'm going to be hardcore working on this book, like rewriting, revising, updating, fact-checking, all of that stuff, and then it goes to editors. And they're being really cool about the way they want to work with editors with me, in that they want to make sure that I have an editor that I feel comfortable with, rather than just kind of like throwing me to the wolves of editors, and you get in that position where you kind of have to fight with editors like, oh no, I actually covered this in a previous chapter, we don't need to repeat it, that kind of crap that I don't really want to do. And nothing personal, but I can't stand working with green editors. It's hard. It's too much work. Anyway, so yeah, 12 weeks, maybe 14 weeks, then it goes into production. And so basically also what that means is that I'm going to have to be working my ass off for the next 3 months with the kind of trickle of income that I have. And I really would not be surviving if it wasn't for your help on this Patreon. Because I can't really take a lot of extra gigs when I'm doing this full time. And it's good that the reps are super excited because it means it will get a really big push when it comes out, probably August of 2020. And then it'll be a nice new book that can get recommended for the holidays, so we can do another push for Christmas, which I think is going to be really good for it. But royalty-wise, it means I ain't going to see money for a while. Again, the upshot is that hopefully it will be lots of money, and I can get Max that dream electronic cat box he really wants. But actually what it means is that I'll get to pay some bills. However, it's going to be a while, so thanks for sticking with me. Okay, Privacy Guide book nerds, now we're going to talk about the Smart Girls Guide to Privacy Chapter 2. Now, Chapter 2 is called But It's Just My Phone Number. And the reason I called it that is because I really wanted people to see how just one tiny disparate piece of information about you could lead to a lot of different things about identity theft and dossiers being created about you by advertising companies. And that while companies will try to minimize things that got stolen in a breach or things that got exposed to malicious people like Cambridge Analytica and stuff like that, they'll be like, oh, it's just your phone number. And in this chapter, I really wanted to explain why their minimization is actually gaslighting about people's privacy, and that these things are actually a big deal, especially when tech press takes, like Facebook PR at their word and is like, oh yes, it was not a big deal. Consumers can rest easy. Well, most of the time consumers can't rest easy, and I really wanted to inform people ways to sort of see through the bullshit in this, so they could say, oh, hey, I know exactly how my phone number getting exposed connected to my real name is going to affect me. And they can, gauge their risk levels accordingly from that point, and also decide who to trust and who not to trust a little bit better. I feel like, though, while it feels like a lot in this chapter hasn't changed, and that this information, a lot of people still don't know why they should care about little things like their phone numbers or their email addresses getting out there until it's too late. And I just want to say, it's not because they're dumb, which is exactly how companies like Facebook feel about their users. They think that people are stupid, and that's why they're giving up their personal information, or, that they're too dumb to know, what it means to have stuff exposed in a breach. And that makes me so angry because it's arrogant, and it makes me stabby. But also, it's not that people are dumb, it's just no one's ever explained to the general public why this matters. No one's ever explained to them what's at risk and what could happen with this information. And I think a lot has probably been done to prevent people from understanding exactly what the context is of the privacy agreements that they agree to. And that's a lot of the point of this chapter, is doing an end run, circumventing, the sort of not only the disinformation coming from companies that totally profit off of people's ignorance, but also the idea that people are ignorant and that they're too dumb and that this might be something that they deserve. Well, it's not. How about we give them a chance to find out what it means and see how they behave after that? Anyway, the point I really wanted to make is that the armor we build around our personally identifying information is what protects our privacy. That brings me to the second point that I wanted to instill in this chapter, particularly, was that I really wanted us to be defining privacy not from the perspective of activists or activism. I feel that a lot of the discussion and defining of privacy, when journalists are rushing to be like, why does this privacy thing matter? Usually the definitions that get turned to come from civil liberties organizations and activism, which are, of course, anti-surveillance and, government reactionary definitions. They never talk about all of the other incredibly valid reasons that are in fact stronger arguments for protecting privacy. The thing is, the privacy discussion about government surveillance, having it like that, that's not everyone's fight. And it's an argument that's easy to knock down in certain places. Because I think that if privacy pushback is all about hiding from the cops, we're going to see the whole privacy discussion and arguments go down like a house of cards. This section also has my infamous red, yellow, green stoplight list, where I take specific different categories of personal information and I assign them to red, like red alert, stop, don't give this information out, don't spread it. Yellow, which is medium, and then green, which is it's not going to totally kill you if it gets out there, but you need to keep an eye on it. So that people can understand what the risks are associated with different kinds of information, so it doesn't feel like some nebulous thing, like, oh, this got out there, so that, they know the difference between what happens with a photo of their ID getting out versus their phone number or their email address getting out there and spread around. Not a lot has changed necessarily since I wrote that chapter, although we have more examples of malfeasance. Though I will have to add a few malicious attacks that people hadn't really heard of when the book came out. In particular, in the new edition, I'm going to spell out how people's personal information is used to attack and manipulate them through advertising and algorithms. Alright, we're at the end of the chapter and the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a supporter. Thank you for leaving comments on my Patreon. And definitely check back in next Tuesday. I'll be doing my weekly cybersecurity roundup. And I'm super excited this week because I'm going to write up all of the insane things that have been going on in the Roger Stone circus trial. It does not disappoint. Thanks again.